Colombia is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and one of the most wounded. For centuries, outsiders tried to take what this land never wanted to give: gold, land, power, silence. But before the blood, before the myths, before the fear, this land had no name. People lived here without clocks, without borders, without the idea of wealth. Gold was not money, it was a prayer. Then a story crossed the ocean, a story about a man covered in gold and a city that should not exist. That story would destroy civilizations, rewrite history, and teach an entire country how to survive pain. This is not a story about cartels or headlines. This is the story of Colombia before the world broke it.
Long before maps tried to divide this land, before flags, before the word Colombia was ever spoken, there was only the land. Mountains that touched the sky, rivers that remembered everything, forests so dense even time moved slowly inside them. People did not arrive here, they emerged from it. They lived without borders, without clocks, without the idea of ownership. The Muisca lived high on the plateaus, where the air was thin and the nights were cold. The Tirona built stone cities in the mountains, hidden above the jungle. The Quimbaya shaped gold with hands guided by belief, not greed. They did not see themselves as masters of the land. They were guests. The land decided where they lived, what they ate, and when they moved on. Nothing was taken. Everything was borrowed. There were no calendars here. No deadlines, no urgency. Days followed the sun, nights followed the fire. Children learned by watching, by listening, by remembering. Stories were not entertainment, they were survival. If a story was forgotten, so was a warning. Gold was everywhere, and it was nowhere. It was not stored, not hoarded, not guarded. Gold was shaped, then returned to the earth. It was worn to speak to the gods, not to impress other humans. Gold had no value until someone decided it should. The mountains protected them, the jungle hid them, the rivers guided them. Isolation was not weakness, it was wisdom. Strangers rarely survived long here. The land tested everyone, and for centuries it was enough. But even the most protected places can be found. All it takes is a story.
A story left this land long before ships arrived. It crossed the ocean without proof, without maps, without mercy. A story about gold. Not small pieces, not offerings, but a man covered in it. They said he stepped into a sacred lake, his body shining, his breath steady, his people watching in silence. Gold dust on skin, emeralds in water. Then he disappeared beneath the surface, and the lake closed above him like nothing had happened. The ritual was never meant to be seen. It was never meant to be taken. But stories do not belong to the people who create them. Across the ocean, the story changed. Gold became currency. The man became proof. The ritual became a map. They named it El Dorado,
A city that could erase poverty, a place where suffering ended, a shortcut to power. Men followed the story into the unknown. They walked into jungles that swallowed sound, climbed mountains that broke the lungs, crossed rivers that erased tracks. The land did not welcome them, it tested them. Many never returned. Some returned broken. Others returned obsessed. Every failure made the story stronger. If they did not find the city, it must be deeper. If they did not find the gold, it must be guarded. The myth refused to die. Villages were questioned, sacred places were exposed, silence became suspicious. Gold stopped being spiritual, it became evidence. The land watched as curiosity turned into hunger, and hunger does not stop. By the time the story reached its peak, it no longer mattered whether El Dorado existed. The damage was already done. Because the most dangerous myths are not the ones that are true. They are the ones people want to believe.
They did not come as explorers. They came as owners. The ships arrived heavy, not with supplies, but with certainty. Certainty that this land belonged to them now. Names were replaced. Symbols were erased. Languages were broken into silence. The mountains were crossed. The forests were cut open. Sacred paths became roads. Where rituals once stood, churches rose. Stone by stone, memory was buried under prayer. The people were told their gods were wrong. Their stories were dangerous. Their gold was sinful. Then it was taken. Hands that once shaped meaning were forced to shape wealth. Bodies were counted. Lives were measured by what they could produce. Those who resisted disappeared. Those who survived learned something new: silence. Silence became protection. Silence became language. Silence became inheritance. Parents taught children what not to say, where not to look, when to lower their eyes. Pain stopped being an event, it became routine. Entire cultures learned to exist quietly. The land changed, but it remembered. Rivers carried names that were never written down. Mountains held cities no one was allowed to mention. History was rewritten by those who stayed alive long enough to tell it, and generations grew up knowing only fragments of who they were. Not because they forgot, because remembering was dangerous. What was lost was never fully gone. It waited. Independence arrived without peace. The flags changed, the rulers changed, the violence did not. The land was free, the people were not. Power shifted from one hand to another, and each hand tightened its grip. Politics became identity. Identity became danger. Neighbors learned to recognize fear in familiar faces. The countryside carried the weight. Farms became battlegrounds. Villages learned to disappear before they were found. Choosing a side was not loyalty, it was survival, and refusing to choose was also a choice. Families learned how to live between lines no one could see. Children grew up understanding tension before language. Gunfire was not chaos, it was routine. Mourning had no schedule. Graves had no names. Violence stopped shocking. It started explaining things. Why people moved, why people stayed silent, why roads ended suddenly. The land absorbed it all. Every generation inherited unfinished conflicts. No victory ever felt complete. No loss ever felt final.
the country learned something important. War does not need armies to exist. It only needs fear to be passed down. And fear, by then, was already tradition.
The rules were never written, but everyone knew them. Some streets were crossed, others were not. Some names were spoken, others stayed locked behind the teeth. Power no longer wore uniforms, it wore silence. Money moved faster than law. Fear moved faster than money. Cities learned new habits. Windows closed early, music lowered at night. Questions were swallowed before they reached the mouth. This was not chaos, it was order, an order built on understanding what not to do. Violence was not constant, it was selective. That made it worse, because unpredictability kept everyone alert, always listening, always calculating. Ordinary life continued in fragments. People worked, children went to school, markets opened every morning, and underneath it all, an invisible system decided who could live normally and who could not. Heroes were dangerous, witnesses were rare. Survival required memory and forgetting at the same time. Remember the rules, forget the faces. Entire generations learned how to live carefully, not bravely, not freely, carefully. The country was known for what it exported, but what stayed behind was heavier. Trust broke quietly, community shrank inward, hope became private, and yet the country did not collapse, it adapted, because survival had already been practiced for centuries. There are places the noise never reached, rivers that move slower than history, villages that learned how to remain unnoticed. This is the Colombia that was never searched for. Boats replace roads, silence replaces distance. Names are spoken softly here, not out of fear, but habit. Life continues without permission, fishing before sunrise, cooking before the heat arrives, listening to the land before making decisions. The world feels far away. News arrives late, sometimes never, and when it does, it arrives without urgency. The forest teaches patience, the river teaches memory. Time is measured by seasons, not events. Traditions remain not because they were protected, but because no one came to erase them. Hands still know how to build, how to heal, how to remember. These places do not appear on postcards. They exist quietly between attention and neglect. The people here do not explain themselves. They do not need to. They have survived by being overlooked, and in a country shaped by conflict, being unseen can be a form of peace. Pain does not always speak. Sometimes it whispers through art, through music, through movement. Here, in hidden corners, people rebuild themselves quietly. Children drum on hollow logs. Seniors paint symbols their ancestors never wanted to forget. Voices rise in song, carrying stories that no one wrote down. Rituals return in shapes and colors. Small offerings, simple dances, ways to honor the past without reliving it. The wounds are still visible, the shadows remain, but hope grows in the smallest gestures. Gardens bloom in abandoned lots, songs echo in streets where silence once ruled. Hands create to remember and to heal. Memory is alive, not as a burden, but as a guide. Pain is not denied, it is transformed. The land itself seems to participate. Rivers move gently. Mountains watch silently.
The wind carries voices from yesterday to today. Healing is not loud, it is patient, persistent, hidden in rhythms that only those who watch closely can see. This is the Colombia that survived, that learned how to turn fear into culture, how to turn history into resilience.
Cities rise from shadows. Streets hum with life, even when history lingers in corners. Children chase each other through plazas where echoes of the past remain. Markets overflow with colors, spices, fruits, and sounds that tell stories older than the tallest buildings. Murals cover walls, reminders of what was and what survived. Art speaks where words fail. Life here is not easy, but it persists, and it thrives in ways outsiders rarely notice. People walk carefully, smiling quietly, listening to lessons their ancestors never forgot. The scars of history do not define them, they shape them. They remind them of strength they earned one day at a time. And yet, in every corner, there is beauty that refuses to be ignored. The mountains still guard secrets. The rivers still whisper memories. The streets still carry footsteps of those who survived and those who dared to dream. This is modern Colombia, a country that lives between shadows and light, between pain and hope, between memory and tomorrow.
The land watches silently. It remembers everything, even the things we try to forget. Generations have passed through mountains, rivers, and cities. They have carried stories, burdens, and hopes. The past is never gone. It moves quietly through the streets, through the forests, through the people who continue to live here. And the future is already waiting. Children play where adults once hid. Rituals continue, but with new meanings. Voices rise, not to hide, but to be heard. The mountains remain, unmoving but aware. The rivers still carry secrets. The wind still whispers stories only those who listen can hear. Colombia has learned how to survive pain, how to heal silently, how to turn history into resilience. And yet, the story is not finished. It continues in every life, in every step, in every dream. So we leave you with a question. If you could step into Colombia for just one day, which hidden story would you choose to uncover? Think carefully. And if you want to continue exploring the mysteries of the world with us, make sure you like this video and subscribe so you never miss another journey. Because every story has more to reveal, and the next one might change the way you see everything.